With all the dark, scary things happening in the world right now, you might be feeling heavy, maybe even hopeless.
But beneath the surface, there's something very powerful happening.
It's an awakening. I'm Jay Pryor, spiritual seeker, life coach, and teacher.
And I'm Megan Lee, a 7th generation seer and medium. We're bringing our gifts to this present moment,
exploring our own awakening and talking with leaders, healers, and visionaries who are helping others wake up as well.
We're also diving into the neuroscience of the woo-woo, exploring how science is finally catching up with the spiritual and helping explain it.
We believe that what we focus on expands and that we are all deeply connected.
Welcome to your awakening.
Welcome to the Wake Up Wave. I'm Jay Pryor, and I'm here with
Megan Lee. Hi, guys. Welcome.
So, Megan, what are we talking about today on the Wake Up Wave and why?
Today we wanted to do just a quick chat with you guys about what's the difference between being triggered as well as being whole hijacked. What do you do in those instances? What happens if you're a person who's looking at all of your awakenings and trying to open your awareness, and then all of a sudden, the only thing that you can see is all of those things pissing you off? What do you do? How do you get to that? How do you get around that? How do you get through that? Is that a thing? Is that part of the process? We just want to quick kind of go in there with that for you.
So is it a part of the process? Do you think that learning to manage your nervous system, which what I would call, right, as a coach who focuses, like I always come from that metaphysical perspective, but I always want to dial in the neuroscience for those of us who are driven by practicality. So is it part of our awakening to be humans that can manage our nervous system?
Yes.
I think it is. I think that's part of the awakening. I really believe that becoming an awakened individual, a very huge part of that is understanding the human. What do we call? Because sometimes I call it a machine because it's the human organism. It's not who we are, right?
Yes.
It's the skin bag. So managing the skin bag, and managing the skin bag for me, understanding my nervous system, and I'm not saying that I'm a complete master in this, right? But every day learning more and more about how to regulate myself and understanding my own nervous system, and that when I'm on those journeys, it's not like I'm going to dig up things to trigger myself. And as I'm becoming a more awakened person, I definitely have hit triggers.
Absolutely. I call it the Subaru effect. You don't see anybody with a white Subaru like forever. You want that color because there is not white Subarus out there. You buy that, dry it off the lot, and all of a sudden 6 white Subarus go past you.
Right.
Because neurologically, as humans, we're magnets. We magnetize. Right. It's why everybody's law of attraction, The Secret, all of those things that have made millions in publicizing themselves, but also in, a lot of truth behind that. And everybody kind of feels and senses it as truth is that whatever you're paying attention to comes to you, period.
Whatever you focus on gets bigger is what I just tell my clients. What you focus on gets bigger. What you focus on always expands no matter what, no matter what, no matter what.
Yes.
I mean, it's essentially a law of the universe.
Yes. Yeah.
From an energetic perspective, it's the law.
Yes.
Right.
Also from a scientific perspective, right? Newton proved that. He proved the law of attraction. And how we do it neurologically through our positive and negative ions, and by completing them together, focusing on a positive ion, will then, by law of universal nature, duplicate itself. By law.
By law.
Right? Newton proved that. So we know if we say, I'm going to work on my triggers, guess what?
Guess what's going to happen? And but that's my point though, is for myself and my own healing and for the healing that I've helped people accomplish, we aren't going in to work on triggers.
Yes.
We're going in to find out what we believe that is keeping us small in this area of our life. right? Or I'm dealing with the trauma that my family history has brought up, or something's happened in my life that I'm having to deal with. But I'm not going, I'm going to put on my trigger hat and go find some triggers, right? I mean, don't do that. You don't need to, trust. And when you decide that you want to walk an awakened path, do not be surprised that whatever's in your way of that is what's going to pop up.
Well, we learned that, last week with, if you didn't catch our last week's podcast, go back and listen to it with craniosacral with Susie Roman, what gets stuck in the body and how that just comes up innately without
Right.
you
Right.
asking what that is. It happens.
Right. Right. So what's the difference then? Because I teach a lot, and this is my business arm especially. We teach a lot about the word hijack and the understanding of the neurological system and cortisol and how it washes out your right and left prefrontal cortex. So when we're hijacked, folks, you get hijacked, right? And that fires, your amygdala fires, and it washes out your right and left prefrontal cortex, which leaves you unable to focus, unable to make great decisions, unable to do all the things because this is your thinking, this is your reason and focus brains, right? These are where we make our executive decisions. So when the cortisol floods out the executive division branch of the brain, right, you're offline and your limbic system takes over, which is your fight, flight, fawn response. So what's the difference between that process, something happens and I get hijacked, versus I get triggered?
So for me, what I teach in my neurodivergent class, because what I've noticed in my practice is that the people who are energy sensitive, are neurodivergents, get hijacked more, right? We get hijacked more because of our abilities, right? But so the brain and its parts, starts developing back here, two sides. This is the last part to get developed. So what you're saying is when you get hijacked, it, flushes this goes away. Then these two lobes still exist and this one, right? So for me, a trigger is the thing that leads you into being hijacked. So for me, as knowing that I'm an energy sensitive and an empath and all of these things, so I have extrasensory perceptions, right? And I do it with air quotes because the United States is one of 6 countries in the world that only teach 5 senses. The rest of the world teaches us to have so many other senses and sensibilities and how to override those senses or to trigger/push on those senses to hijack another human, or to know what that feels like when you're hijacked. So what I teach is know your triggers, know what the trigger is, know before you get there. And a lot of times it doesn't work until you've been completely hijacked a few times.
Right. Yeah, because the whole notion of a trigger is, it's like you can get hooked without knowing that that's going to be there.
And that's what I
which, there's I'm of two minds. That's why, what I teach is I want people to know the symptoms of hijack. So the immediate symptom of hijack that I drill in my management teams and business is a symptom of hijack that we all have is when we've been hijacked, our brain starts to ruminate on the threat. So it starts to talk really fast at us. And it talks about the threat. And I love it because it's kind of funny to joke about, what my brain does is like, oh yeah, that's the next time. And you just wait till next time I'm going to say this. And you rehearse the threat over and over and over and over again. And you hear that person saying that thing to you, right? That just hooked you. So if you can, I swear this is my very first piece of advice. I'm curious as to what yours is. My first piece of advice is to shut your mouth. Because when you are ruminating like that, when your brain is going fast, you are not going to say anything helpful. The brain, because it's the limbic system has taken over and the executive function piece is gone, you are going to sound like a cornered cat or a 5-year-old or something. Like you're going to say things you may never be able to take back. Now, can I follow that principle all the time? No. No, it is solid advice. And it is solid advice to understand for yourself When your brain starts doing that, ruminating at you about the threat, you're hijacked. Like something, you have been triggered and you should you could choose to shut your mouth right now until that cortisol comes down,
Right.
right? The cortisol has to come down. And what happens when we're really in something that sticks to us is every time we think about that threat, the cortisol goes back. Like we'll get all calm down, we're all good. And then we start to engage in that conversation with somebody again, and we immediately start to get angry again or freaked out again, or, that rumination comes again.
Oh, yeah.
We have to get to a place where that is complete, like we can have a conversation without the ruminating starting before we are at a state to be able to make decisions and have those kind of conversations. I also then assert that I hate the word self-care, but like huge compassion and taking care of yourself in that moment, regardless of whether it's a trigger that you are aware of from your past or it's just in your mind, it's just your boss just said that one thing that's just going to tip you over the edge. Whatever that is, right? It's shut your mouth, hear the ruminating, shut your mouth, get out, go do something, get away. So, and then you add to that, right?
Yeah. So when you get triggered before the hijacked, your body will be the first thing to react for you. And what happens, no matter who you are on a neurological level, from here to about your belly button tightens. It tightens. That's the very first thing that happens when you get triggered on a human level. The other thing that happens in body language, saying to yourself, because it will all be body that will react first, is that your feet or your feet and your hands clench. So you will tighten and pivot up your feet, and you will tighten your hands and your chest. You'll roll your shoulders in. And when that happens, the very next thing to go before your cortisol flush is your breath. Your breath. You stop breathing deeply. And you go from those lower lungs to the upper lungs. Right. Once you hit the upper lungs, your lungs are the trigger to your central nervous system. So once you start breathing in your upper lungs, because that's the first thing that is connected down here, that's the first major organ that it hits is your lungs, and your central nervous system, is in the back of your neck. So the central nervous system, the lungs, blip to the central nervous system, and all of a sudden that cortisol will go whoosh. You're done. So what I tell people is be very aware of your body. Right. Because your attention and your focus can be in two different places at one time, especially for people with extrasensory perceptions, because your innate ability is to hyperfocus. So hyperfocus on yourself and then put your attention on the other person. So if you're focusing on yourself, you can see where in your body it's tightening. Are your shoulders back? Are your hands open? Are your feet, are your heels open? Or are they to a different direction? So paying attention to your body when that trigger happens can slow the cortisol flush reaction down. And then the very next thing that you need to do is excuse yourself.
Yes. No, shut your mouth and get out.
Excuse yourself. Because on a scientific level of energy exchange, especially when you go into you start to go into fetal position. That's a human thing, right? You curl your shoulders, you tuck in your feet, your spine curls, you go into fetal position. Once that happens, you have just given up autonomy over your energetic system. When you curl and you leave this neurological system open, the brain has already been flushed with cortisol. Someone else's energy on a scientific level goes over yours. It will go over yours. And as a human, we do that to protect the weak. Right? That's just a human innate thing. We're protecting the weak, except for in our, this 2025, people are using that for other things, because people who are in seats of power or in a conversation of power, once you feel that, then other people's voices get bigger. So when you pay attention to your body and you catch you roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath, and you know that you're being triggered, then you excuse yourself. Once you excuse yourself, the thing that you can do to reset the cortisol flush are the things that surpass logic. And you have to go back to the senses that were developed in utero. And that is breath and smell. Thought comes very last, because that wasn't developed until after utero. And you have to surpass the logic, because that's the point that has already been flushed. So what you do is you go straight into your breath, because that would be the very first thing that utero developed before the sense of smell. So in order to do so, what you do is what I call brain floss. And you take this nostril, breathe in, pinch, and release. Breathe in, pinch, and release. What that does is takes air and pushes it up into your frontal lobe, crossing the blood barrier and hemisyncing or alkalining your brain. Tells that cortisol, I'm in control. And then right after that brain floss breath, you can do things like the box breath. 4 in, hold 4, out for 4. Or I like to expand it and do what I call baths, or HU baths. And that's just telling your body that you're in control of your nervous system. And what I tell people to do is rub your hands together, because scientifically you're making energy. If you have lost the authority of your body, the way to get it back is make more energy. So then what you do is use your voice to put your energy into yourself by a HU, or an OM. Those are universal Sanskrit language for the God spark, is HU. So it adds a frequency to any frequency. Or OM is the frequency of peace. So it will neutralize an energy. It will override chaos. So, and then put it over your body and land in the back of your neck, because that's where that nervous system is. And at that moment, when you cover this part of your neck, it will tell your central nervous system that you're sovereign over your body and in control over it. Your heart rate's going to low. That cortisol will dissolve. It's how you get out of that quicker. And then after that, then you need to have a back pocket affirmation of an absolute truth. Mine is, I trust the decisions I make for my children, because that's a truth. No matter what, I'll put myself in a sticky situation. I'm never going to put my kids in a sticky situation. So that's my cue card that I need to pull this part of my brain back in and tuck it in. And then I'll go back into the verbal affirmations of, how do I word and use my words to get back into the situation, be ready and open to either alchemize myself or explain myself or the situation, and be willing to compromise. And it's not until you are in a place of I'm willing to compromise that you should go back into a situation that you were hijacked or triggered in the first place. Because if you're not there, then you know there's cortisol still running its course.
Right.
And depending on how much, or how long that interaction happened, then that's when you go back in. So that's what I teach people.
Now, if you're listening to this and you're not watching it, you should jump over to our YouTube channel or our Substack and watch, because Megan just gave a great demonstration of like where the central nervous system is, which really sits, and I think that it's a lot of people know this, right? That it sits back at the bottom, and that our vagus nerve then is attached there and runs all the way down our spine and has little tentacles out to every piece of our body, right? So, I love that. That was brilliant.
Yep.
Great, right, Brand. And I just teach people, in the past, I've just taught people to breathe, mostly, especially and get away and breathe, because that, I know that we have a tendency to shallow breathe all the time as humans. We're not breathing nary like
No.
we need to, just as people. And then, of course, when we're hijacked, we, stop
Right.
breathing and do that.
Yep.
Now, Megan, the mindfulness, right? Because here's the thing, as a layperson and as somebody who's like, I'm always going to be that partier on the side who's going to question the woo. Because all of that you just said, right? That whole process that you developed happens in a nanosecond,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, it's done. Your cortisol's fired, and it's done
Mhm.
before most of us can even know what's happening,
Yep.
right? I'm out the gate ready to throw a fist before that's if you're a fighter like me, or like I love one of the funniest stories I've ever, well, it's fun. It's a bad one on me, but like when Jessica and I were in Washington D.C., we were sitting at this ice cream place once, and there's a wall behind her,
Uh,
and the biggest rat I've ever seen in my life comes like across the top of the wall. And I literally screamed and ran and knocked over the chair. There was nothing in me that was going to save my wife, like nothing. I just screamed and ran, right? And I was running, and I tell this because my limbic system was running before I could say to her, there's a rat. Like I couldn't say the word rat before my body was running,
yeah.
right? So all of this happens in a nanosecond. And so, for your lay people that haven't been able to dial, I mean, that level of awakening, that level of mindfulness to be able to catch yourself in that moment, right, is masterful. I'm certainly not there. And I love that there is a formula, which it's why you and I are great together,
Mhm.
right? There's a formula because I love a formula. There's a formula that I can follow, and being able to get to that point, right, is going to take something. So let's talk about a couple of other mindfulness practices to practice, right? Because that's what I'm always telling my folks. If I have to practice or I go unconscious, and I've
Oh
been
yeah.
studying metaphysics and studying this stuff for 40
Yeah.
years, right? I will go unconscious if I don't continue to meditate and practice mindfulness and being in my body and all the things that I'm, kind of not especially as a dissociative child, queer quit kid, was not used to doing. Being in my body was not something I mean, I'm a trans person too, all the dysphoria. So, like I've had to practice mindfulness. One of the books I recommend to my business clients because it's fun too is Goldie. It's for kids. Is Goldie Hawn's 10 Mindful Minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and because it teaches mindfulness to kids with just
Yeah.
really simple exercises. But I thought maybe we should cover a couple of practices people can do on in between, so we start to practice being in our body so much that we can stop ourselves the nanosecond we start to experience that whole system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, very much so. And I teach shadow work classes at the Village Witch in Lawrence, Kansas. And the step one of what I tell people is that when you decide you've noticed all of these things and you're like, okay, I'm going to start doing shadow work. Or you do all of these things and you're like, okay, I'm going to go on my awakening process. I'm in the year of awakening. You hear yourself say that, you need to do a couple other things. Like there's some other things that you need to start practicing. And the thing that I coach people to do all of the time is start with your body language. Just start noticing your body language, and the things that you could practice are really all of those things that you learned in Toastmasters or your speech class. And what that really looks like is when you're in a conversation with someone, look at your feet. Are they towards someone? Do you have one foot out? Do you have 2 feet out? Is your whole self going like this and then you're having this conversation like this? Do you talk with your hands? Notice your body. Notice your body and where you're at. Because if you're and this is something I learned in Toastmasters when I was a teenager. I wanted to do public speaking for a living, but I had such a stage fright. I couldn't, even now, I get in front of 500 people and a panic attack right before it. I had, create all of these tools to help me with that. And what I learned was if you open your foot, that is an open invitation for anybody else to come into that energy. If your feet are straight on, you are engaged, and this is a closed conversation, and you'd have to say, excuse me, to get into it. Where are your shoulders? Are they to your ears? Are they hunched over? Are they in the back? Are you standing up straight? What part of your body is opening or closing, and paying attention to that? And then what happens when you intentionally put your body in positions? How does that conversation go for you?
Yeah, that's good. I teach people to, it's stuff that I do are those mindfulness practice like tasting my food. Like I remember one time when I had this bike accident and I ripped off the skin on my arm. It was really painful. And I had, you know how it is when you have kids. Sometimes you don't get to eat a hot meal. You know what I mean? Like you just don't,
Yeah.
your food is cold before you get to eat. And I had just made myself this great burger. It was like, I was really excited about this burger. And I went to shove my sleeve up and it ripped the skin on my arm and it hurt. But I knew if I got up to take care of that in that moment, that by the time I got back, my food was going to be cold. So instead of going to deal with that right away, I just focused on every bite of that burger. And before I was a quarter of a way through that burger, first of all, it was the best burger I ever had in my life. Second of all, it was, it's to this date, like best burger ever. But also the pain stopped. Right. Because I wasn't focusing on the pain. I was focusing on the pleasure and the every tiny flavor in that burger. Right. And so for me, even little practices throughout the day to notice like 3 things I'm seeing to be here in this now moment in my body and right here. Because the other thing that, you and I are wanting people to focus on this awakening, but I assert right now that a lot of people are they're not here because they're so worried about the future.
Oh, yeah.
Of our country, their future of our kids, their future of everything. Yeah. And we have to keep practicing being here now.
Yes.
Because in this now moment is all we have right now. And then now. And then now. Right? It's all we got. And so being here now also, I feel like, and the more I practice that, and then for me, meditation, when I started meditating when my kids were little, I was blown away by, and there's studies, I talk about this in my book, the Harvard study, that talks about this, where they grew gray matter after meditating 27 days in the hippocampus and around the amygdala actually grew gray matter. And so, I noticed after 30 days of being a daily meditator that the same things that would piss me off that my kids did 30 days ago aren't pissing me off anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not as reactive. And that's because if you're meditating and you're growing that gray matter, your brain really thickens up. Like you get literally less reactive.
Right.
So there's some of those things that we can do that I think are on the path toward being that person that can be like, noticing the body to the degree that they can breathe and brain floss at that time. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Absolutely, 100%. I used to hate people who were like, Megan, you are not grounded. And I'd be like, I am on this ground. And I'm big. I'm a thick chick. How much more grounded do you think I'm getting? I know that. But what they really wanted to say to me is, you're not present in this moment. You're all over the place. And I needed them to word that differently for me to be able to be like, what is grounded and how dare you say that to me? These hips are as big as they're going to get. I'm grounded. But what else do you do? And they would say, oh, you have to meditate. Here's some essential oils, blah, 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 blah. I would close my eyes and go, and be peace of what was happening around me. So I had to find different verbiage. And for me, as someone who teaches divination and how to divine, is how to tap into something. And with you tapping into yourself, the things that you need are focus and solfege. So what you're focusing on And that could be either closing your eyes and focusing on that meditation, or it could be, looking up at your third eye and staring out, or it could be a point, in the room that you just stare at consecutively. That's meditating. And then the next thing is soltilage, and that is the shuffle of the dice. That is the shuffle of the deck, the roll of the dice,
What is the word that you're saying? Are you saying soul? SOUL?
soltilage. Soltilage.
Spell it.
And I'm not good at spelling stuff.
I don't know what you're
But
saying.
use Google
Soltilage?
and hey Google, what is
Whoa.
soltilage? It's SOLTLAGE, I think. Soltilage.
Okay.
Right? Soltilage.
Okay.
So it's the thing that it's the over and over. It's the chanting. It's the
Okay.
all of those things. That's soltilage, right? It's doing something
Okay.
repetitively.
Yes,
So
got it.
by doing something repetitively and having a focus point, that's meditation. So if you do an open-eyed meditation and you're staring at, the dot on the wall that for me, I got kids, it's a ketchup stain on the wall that how did that get flung over there? And instead of saying because I'm not in a place of peace and I'm a Leo and I've got a lot of fire energy towards me. And remember, I'm sick. I don't need to be grounded. God damn it, I am grounded. My head is what I'm thinking to myself. What I'm saying repetitively is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, over and over and over and over again. And that is meditation. It doesn't have to look like you.
No, it doesn't have to look like sitting and oming and doing the silence and all that stuff. I do enjoy that, though. I'm a big fan of the silent meditations.
If you can get there.
But I had to learn to do it. I had to learn to get in. I had to learn to... Now I can get in anywhere, anytime, any place.
Yes.
I love it. Like I could sit in an airport and just go in there. And that's a beautiful place. But it took me a long time, and I had to practice and learn how to do it. Like I really did. I had to learn how to do it.
And that brings you to
all kinds of meditation. There's walking meditation. There's all kinds, everything.
Yeah, you can count your steps. Just keep counting your steps, focusing on your feet, putting one foot in front of another. It's just your focus and your attention and repetition are the three things that you need to be in meditation. And like Jay was saying, being present with each bite, noticing each flavor in each bite, that's what being present means. It means that your whole thought process, you don't care what's going wrong. Jay's bleeding out of their body.
It wasn't that bad.
Nothing else matters, but what you're focusing your attention on and your repetitive biting of and oohs and ahs makes you grounded and present in the moment. So anything painful that is out in the external world, you are able to separate yourself and be in an internal state of beingness. And that's why we're doing this is what kind of healing do we need to do are out there and modalities that you guys can tap onto? What kind of divination is out there that you guys can tap into? What kind of practicality can you do on a day-to-day basis that makes you in the present moment like Jay was talking about?
That's awakening.
That's awakening. That's what it looks like.
Right.
So that when those triggers do happen, you know how to refocus your attention and put that mindfulness somewhere else other than the trigger. So you don't get completely hijacked, because that hijack could last for me days.
Depends on what it is. Not to me anymore. I mean, but it's been, I've been working on them for years.
Right.
So I rarely have a trigger that goes that long, but it can definitely do something. And I think, at some point, maybe not today, but we need to talk about, or can talk about, what do you do when you screw it up? Because I screw it up. Like, I definitely don't do it right. I will not shut my mouth. I will not excuse myself. I will go ahead and put my foot in my mouth, or say the wrong thing, or do the wrong thing, and then you just get literally good at being somebody who cleans it up.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole thing. I am
really that's about being a powerful person.
Mess up. But, what I do is take control of my breath. As Americans, we inhale longer than we exhale. So if we start exhaling longer than we inhale, you're able to balance that reason back out and say, I'm going to work on my communication. I messed this up.
Right there. Yeah, and not only that, but like I can.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, something happened. I don't
Repause,
know
and
what
I
that
will
was.
cut that out and tie that back in.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
weird.
yeah, yeah. That was. It was like I thought maybe you get an emergency alert or something. It was weird,
Hmm. Yeah,
but
but anyway,
I don't know.
going back to our triggers and what we're trying to do is refocus, repurpose, and breathe out. Try breathing out longer than you breathe in, and then go re-apologize. You messed up.
Well, yeah, I'm great at apologizing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's something I've really worked on because I am loud and I've learned to love myself because I'm, like there's a bit I used to hate that I wouldn't shut my mouth. Like there were so many times that I've been like, just shut your fucking mouth. My God, man. And I'd try to be a quiet person. I'm not a quiet person. It is inauthentic for me to say I am a quiet person. I am going to, and I mean, I do recon first because I'm the youngest of nine,
Yeah.
so I always do, I'm quiet at the beginning. I do recon first. But once I'm comfortable somewhere, it's authentic for me to say that I'm, a quiet person. I'm not.
Yes.
And so therefore, I sometimes shoot off my mouth. The more mindful I get and the more conscious of my own everything, including my privilege I get, I am working on being more mindful before I speak. But the reality is, I've had to learn to apologize. I'm always going to piss people off
Yeah,
at
but I
some point.
really truly believe that learning that skill to apologize to others really helps you apologize to yourself.
Agree. Agree.
'Cause I wasn't good at apologizing to myself until I got really good at saying, "Oh man, I fucked that right on up."
Right.
So, I think that if you're struggling out there by, apologizing to yourself, maybe that's something you could also take a wee gander at.
Yeah, and one of the real keys for me, and it does lead back to this trigger, so I'm not going out on a limb here, is me learning again about to have compassion for myself
Yes.
as someone who has been traumatized and traumatized others, and owning and taking responsibility for that, but also being able to dial in that level of compassion for myself, then had me be able to have compassion for other people at a level that I didn't also know because
Uh,
I'm so wired for perfection in terms of, I got to do it right,
yep.
that I also am pretty critical of other people. Like
Yeah.
I expect other people to, get it right. So I expect myself to get it right.
Mhm.
And so being able to figure out that unlocking that compassion piece for me has been massive in
Yeah.
terms of awakening. It's a game changer
Oh
for me
yeah,
is to
and
be
I
able
think
to
that's
feel
awesome.
real compassion for ourselves.
Yes, because as we've learned, with our other guests, is that we come in so pre-wired with all of this BS. People are like, "Oh, you have a bad picker." No, 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 no. Your great 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 grandmother had a bad picker, and then all of a sudden everybody did, and well, how could you be mad at yourself?
Right.
Because that was hardwired.
Right. And not just that, but everything, if you really consider that, one of my favorite authors, Robin Goebel, who talks about the fact that no behavior is maladaptive,
Uh,
then every single behavior is either about protection or connection.
Absolutely.
And so if I am doing these things to protect myself, how can I not have compassion for that?
Right.
How can you not have compassion for yourself when you've developed this to protect yourself?
Yeah.
Right? This is about you staying
Yeah.
safe. So let's have compassion for everything we've generated that helps us stay safe, including our own body will help us stay safe by triggering us, and sending ourselves into fight or flight. And so, of course, then it's on us to develop the consciousness compassion of ourselves in those moments, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great, book into what we're talking about is no matter what, no matter if you get hijacked or triggered or, you blew it completely or you did a great job, either
Yeah.
way, that compassion piece is a huge bit of awakening on every step that you take in your awakening, and like literally every single, no matter what modality you choose, no matter what religion you attach to or identify with, compassion is a huge player in the game.
Amen. Right on.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jay, thanks again. You guys, I hope this, episode helped us. Feel free to comment on all the things of what triggers you, what hijacked you. How'd you do this week?
Yeah.
Did you get hijacked?
Right.
You had that apology?
We hope not. And I think sometimes we get confused about hijack versus just a little bit of emotional regulation. And
that too?
I know for sure I do too. But no matter where you are, wherever you are right now, it's okay.
It truly is. You woke up today, you're
a part of the wave.
Yeah. Yep.
Right on.
All right.
See you
Thanks for
next
joining us
time.
for the Wake Up Wave.
Bye.
Thanks for catching the Wake Up Wave with us.
We hope today sparked something in you, a reminder, a question, or even a deeper breath.
If you're feeling the shift, share this episode, leave us a review, or just keep tuning in. Every wave you catch matters.
And remember, what we focus on actually expands. We are all very deeply connected.